Welcome to In Depth, your weekly podcast from Press Express about news and newsmakers from India, Bangladesh, and beyond. We bring you an in depth look at the top stories that are making headlines. I'm Tulika, your host from Delhi. In less than 50 days, Bangladesh will hold its next general election on the 7th of January 2024. But as things stand, the kind of worldwide attention this election has garnered remains unprecedented. There's also the common rhetoric about the main opposition party, the BNP or the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, and whether it will participate in the election or not. If not, foreign observers seem to think that it's going to be a one sided election. But with 45 political parties registered to contest the polls, what really is the ground reality? And to help us break this down, I have two amazing guests joining me today from Delhi and Dhaka. First up, I'd like to introduce Mr. Shamsher Mubin Chaudhary. He is the chairperson of the Trinamool BNP, the political party which is also contesting the election. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. I also have with me Dr. Sri Radha Datta. She's a professor at the OP Jindal University in Delhi. She's an international affairs expert. Welcome, ma'am.
Thanks, Talika.
So I'll start with you first, ma'am, and I want to ask you a very direct question. When seen from a global lens, the Bangladesh election is mostly about the narrative that the BNP is going to participate or not. As an independent observer sitting in India, how do you see this?
Awami League government led by Sheikh Hasina was ushered in through a huge resounding victory in 2008 December election. And ever since that, there's been two other Jatiya Samsad elections, which is 2014 and 2018. And
Hmm.
the 2024 is one we are looking ahead to. But both the elections, 2014 and 2018, had some issues, I would say, which is why there's so much of attention being drawn to this particular election, which is likely to be held as per their announcement on 7th of January. Within the next 50 days. In 2014 elections, as soon as Sheikh Hasina had come, ushered in
Hmm.
power, within a couple of years, in 2011 actually, she had taken away a particular, component which is known as the caretaker government. So clearly in 2024, the whole world is expecting that there's going to be a far more inclusive elections.
Yes, when the constitutional amendment was done in 2011, it was done with all the political parties, including members of the BNP, present to agree to the fact that this particular amendment needs to be abolished. But on that note, I also want
No,
to talk.
there were hardly any BNP members, and it wasn't. I mean, they had overwhelming majority. So the
Of
numbers that
course, the overwhelming majority
yeah,
has always been there.
the
Yeah.
numbers that Awami League had was easy enough for them to pass this resolution.
Shamsher, I want to come to you. And I also earlier mentioned that 45, nearly 45 other political parties are registered for these elections next year, including the Trinamool BNP. But what is really happening on the ground? Can you give us a sense of that?
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me. And good to see my friend Shirada there. I'm glad you used the word direct question to her because she's always been known to answer directly and doesn't beat around the bush.
Hmm.
And the other controversy that came around removing that particular provision of the Constitution, it was referred to the court.
Hmm.
Now, the five-member Supreme Court was divided right between the middle.
Hmm.
Four said yes, it can be amended. Sorry, two said yes, it can be amended. Two said no, it should not be amended. But
Okay.
the Chief Justice's vote was that changed the balance. Yes, the caretaker government had its flaws. However, it turned out to be something like throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Hmm.
Now, what happened is since then, as Shirada has said, the 2014 election, the BNP boycotted, which tactically was a major mistake by the BNP. Frankly, I was then in the BNP, and we were in the minority who were saying, or rather, we were in the majority who were saying, go for the election. Even the UN had sent a special representative, uh,
Hmm.
Ban Ki moon was the Secretary General, to try to mediate between the two parties to find, because BNP was hard,
Yes.
rigid on having a caretaker government. The Army said it's not constitutional, we cannot do it. And after a lot of attempts, the UN finally gave up because the two major parties could not agree. I still feel very strongly that BNP should have gone into the election,
Hmm.
and the anti-incumbency factor was already growing. And
And was that also one of your main reasons for leaving the party at that time?
well, that was 2000. The district in 2013, 14. It's really seriously disillusioned me.
Hmm.
That if you are a political party, you test yourself on the ground in the ballot,
Absolutely.
not through street agitations. The other thing that really um, uh, bothered me very, very seriously was that in 2013, the government of India under Dr. Manmohan Singh had invited Begum Zia, as leader of the opposition, to an official visit to India. And she
Okay.
was treated very, very well. She was treated like a head of
Okay.
government.
Okay.
And Dr. Manmohan Singh had a meeting and lunch spreading over 3 hours. The newly appointed uh, foreign minister, Salman Khurshid, had a lunch for her at the Hyderabad house, which is very prestigious.
Yes.
Then leader of the opposition, the Lok Sabha, Dr. Sushma Swaraj, had a long meeting with her. And then eventually it ended up with a meeting with the president, Mr. Pranab
Okay.
Mukherjee, at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. She returned to Dhaka very happy, and then few days, a couple of months later, one of Jamaat's leaders was sentenced to death for his crimes in 1971. And this happened around the time Mr. Pranab Mukherjee was visiting as president. And there was a meeting fixed between Begum Zia as leader of the opposition with the Indian president.
Hmm.
And Jamaat had called a hartal, which is what in India you call bandh, kind of strike, on that very particular day when Begum Zia was supposed to meet
Okay.
the Indian president. And citing that as an excuse, at the very last moment, she decided not to go ahead with the meeting. And I was given the unpleasant task of conveying this to my Indian friends.
Okay.
And the reply from the Indian High Commission here was that we note that the chairperson of BNP shall not meet the President of India. So, that said it all. So
Okay.
that was another case where I felt really I had egg on my face. I mean,
Hmm.
here I had gone ahead, and she had a very nice trip to India, very well received at the highest level. Mr. Pranab Mukherjee gave her an hour, and she even invited Mr. Pranab Mukherjee to visit Bangladesh.
Okay. Okay.
That was for me kind of a tipping point. I don't know if there's been a change in BNP because I'm not really in touch with them anymore.
Yes, yes.
I
And
have nothing to do.
obviously, sorry to cut in, but obviously from then to now, you understand this. You have this entire history. You understand very well the inner workings, the leadership that BNP has come with. But from then to now, do you think the party is even capable enough of having a good representation, a strong leadership representation, if it chooses to participate in the election?
You see, this is the major paradox in Bangladesh right now. You see, the Awami League has been in office for 15 years at a stretch.
Is that something that
That
is
is,
really working in the favor of BNP, which clearly doesn't have any strong leadership at the front? But on
this is
that
the
note,
thing, that it is a public support, but at the same time, people realize that it does not have not just a strong leadership, but a leadership who is not even at all
who's
tested.
not present, who is not visible?
Yeah, yeah, he's out of the country. But in spite
Abs-
of that, he's in touch over Skype with everybody, and
Long
the
distance
public
leadership
perception
for that.
is public, yeah, absent leadership, absentee landlord, and I think Awami League would be better off if they formed a grand coalition with parties like ours, which is new, small, but we are in a position to field 300 candidates as of today.
Okay.
Because the response from the public to join our party is also been very, very good and very impressive, which is really showing there's an anti-BNP feeling also among some people, among many people.
But Dr. Sriradha, Shamsher sir had earlier mentioned Army Party, whose registration stands cancelled, but it is also very active politically. What do you feel? How's this scenario going to play out? It's one of the biggest political parties in Bangladesh. Do you see them participating in any way in the upcoming election?
They will, because this registration issue, of course, is a matter of legal matter. But if you look at Bangladesh, the one political party which has
Hmm.
cadres all across the districts, 64 of them, that's Jamaat. So despite the fact that they also, given the the legal effect of the anti-war issues, there has been some leadership losses
Hmm.
at high level, really, but they've been able to get their strength back in terms of the cadre joining them, and they stand
Okay.
pretty strong. So they will somehow find ways to participate under maybe not the Jamaat platform, but I'm sure so many of them enrolled will have some entrance point through other political parties or through some other ways.
There are 45 political parties that are registered. There are several smaller Islamist parties. There are many parties like the Jatiya Party, which is grabbing local headlines. There is the Kalyan Party on a much smaller level. They are forming smaller alliances. They are forming their own strategies to participate in the contest. The larger narrative is mostly around PNP and Awami League. But what about these smaller political parties? Can you give a sense of what is happening on the ground when it comes to these political parties?
The best option for the Awami League will be to form a large coalition, which includes, as you said, our party, Jati Party. I don't know whether they'll become part of the coalition or not. Then there are uh, the Kullan Party, very small, which all jumped into the
Yes.
ring only 3 days ago. Then there's another small party called the Bangladesh Nationalist Movement. Now,
Okay.
the fact remains that those who are joining the Bangladesh Nationalist Movement, many
Hmm.
of them are former BNP MPs. So if
Okay.
the BNP does come into the fray, then the BNP might feel tempted to take them back. They had been left out. They were disgruntled with some of the things with BNP. But if they see that there's a chance of for them to, put up a fight
Hmm.
in a fair election, then they might go back to BNP. So these elements of uncertainty is
Okay.
literally swirling in the air.
Okay, but the
As
campaigning
we were
is to
talking,
begin in the next 18 days, 18 to 20 days, and you think there is still this air of uncertainty?
the cutoff point is actually 30th of this month. That's when you submit your
Okay.
nomination.
Yes.
So if you have not submitted your nomination by that date, then of course you cannot take part in the election.
Hmm.
So if suddenly tomorrow, you hear breaking news that the BNP has said they will join the election, then they still have what 5 days left to file their nominations. It could be messy for them to
Hmm.
really sort things out, uh, but it's very unlikely that they'll have more than one candidate in each constituency. In the
Okay.
Awami League case, because of the 15 years of stay, continuous stay, on an average, right now, there are
Hmm.
7 to 8 candidates for every seat.
To sum up what you're saying, both Jamaat and BNP, the members will find a way to participate in the election either as an independent candidate or when aligned with another registered party. So it's not like they're completely out of the election or boycotting it. But
Not
Dr.
until now.
Sriradha,
They will make up their mind
not
today or
until.
tomorrow. Yeah.
Okay. And by the 30th November, which is the cutoff date for nominations, you feel that there are going to be two or three bigger alliances that we will see, which is formed by coalitions of different smaller parties with one or two larger parties. But Dr. Sri Radha, when I come to you, speaking of two different scenarios, one is whether the BNP is participating, and two is the BNP is boycotting. How do you see these two different scenarios play out in the country?
It's a difficult one. We are not soothsayers, but I would actually think that BNP should come in
Hmm.
with whatever differences they have, and very legitimate differences. I completely agree with their point of position about what they say, that and there has been no dialogue, as you know, between the government and the opposition at all. There has been no
Hmm.
scope for that. I've argued this many places
Okay.
I write, when I speak, that even a year ago, I would have said that Awami League free and fair elections had a fair chance, because what they've done in terms of developmental patterns, economic, growth, they've done a very, very accomplished. I mean, many, many,
Hmm.
kind of achievements. Bangladesh. across the whole country of very, very politically aware people. You can't, take them for granted.
There's a lot of talk about foreign interference. There's a lot of talk about India's support, regional support, or global support for the Awami League government to continue, keeping in mind the kind of economic growth that has been going on, keeping in mind the kind of political stability that they provide, not just within Bangladesh, where these factors could be stringent and strong, from the global perspective, from the South Asian, the regional perspective, what kind of geopolitics do you see playing out? There seems to be a lot of stronger support to continue the present government.
From India's point of view, certainly so. We've not had a very pleasant history with BNP. I mean, that's known to all. But again, the particular reference to Khalida Zia's visit was, of course, we hoped would change that particular, mindset that India had. But India certainly has worked very well, has always worked very well. It's not only in the recent last 15 years, but we certainly are very, very fearful about what happens if there's a non-Awami League government, because history has shown otherwise. While Indian point of view is, of course, that we back Awami League, and as you mentioned, the regional players also want stability. Everybody wants stability. I'm not terribly convinced that every government in the region or outside wants Awami League. I'm not convinced about that. Yes, China is. China has worked very well with this government. I mean, they've been able to balance India very well. This Awami League government has also kept China very
Hmm.
happy. So China is more than happy with the status quo. But in terms of the other regional players, I'm not terribly convinced. Everybody wants political stability. I mean,
Absolutely. And I also want to add here that whether it's China or India, the official stand is that we are not going to interfere in the election of another country. It's their own internal stand and let the people decide. But overall, the ruling BJP also has a very strong relation with the present government and has said quite vocally in the public domain, and even had talks with the United States about this, about favoring the present government to continue when it comes to the kind of economic growth and the political stability and the achievements that they have shown in the last many years when it comes to Indo-Bangla ties also. But Shamsher, I want to come to you and I want to ask you that your party recently had a meeting with Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina also to demand a level playing field where free and fair elections were discussed. Was there also any talk of any coalitions or alliance being formed?
No, there was no talk of being part of the coalition. Uh, the Prime Minister assured us that there will be a free and fair election and a participatory one. And we believe that even if the BNP didn't come, there will be a participatory election because the smaller parties, garner people to the voting center. The other
Hmm.
reason why I think BNP might, at the last moment, uh, come to the election, knowing that there will be obstacles on the way in the form of some kind of, machinations here and there, is to make this election more controversial to the outside world.
Okay.
They will be capable of creating a scene and blaming it on the government. So, Begum Zia's ill health, of course, is an issue. Uh, I think there's a general feeling in the public that maybe she's not really in the best of health. In fact, she's quite ill and physically incapable of really, doing the legwork needed for an election. So these factors also play in the voter's mind in uh, in
Hmm.
Bangladesh. Uh, the I mean, there was an IRI, the International Republican Institute, which is the
Yes.
Republican Party, pro-Republican Party think tank in India. They have in Bangladesh. They have a pretty large representation here and very effective one. They came out with a survey sometimes in August, I think, uh, which was pretty credible. And in that survey, the question that was asked was that is the government going in the right direction?
Hmm.
I think less than 25% said yes. Uh,
Okay.
and then he said, is the prime minister going in the right direction? 70% plus said yes. The other thing that it was interesting in that survey, I mean, there are so many other questions. That
Yes, yes,
which is your
absolutely.
main source of news? Why do you base your information on? 72%, or maybe even more, I think 80%, said the television, the electronic media.
Hmm.
And
So,
in our
so
country,
a lot
television
of
really,
interesting results there. I just want to add here that the survey was conducted on 5,000 adults. That was
yeah,
the survey base. And one of the results which you mentioned also was that 72% of respondents felt that the Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's performance was really, really good in comparison to other candidates. And
any other, yeah,
92% respondents also said that they will go and vote in the upcoming election.
yes,
So
yes,
that is a
yeah,
pretty good figure. But
very
that was
positive
one
feedback.
survey. And I want to ask you about Trinamool BNP also. What are the strengths? Are you open to an alliance with the Awami League? Are you considering it? And do you see Trinamool BNP becoming one of the major forces to reckon with in the coming future as an alternative to even the BNP, maybe?
That is what our aspiration is, and that, given the BNP leadership, the public distrust of the BNP top leadership,
Hmm.
we think we can emerge as a new force. Two of the Some of the slogans that we think have attracted people to us. One is good governance,
Hmm.
uh, healthy politics, uh, totally very strong commitment to the values and spirits of the liberation war, total commitment to non-communal politics.
Yes.
That is something, one of the pillars of our liberation war, that will create a non-communal Bangladesh.
Hmm.
And by and large, Bangladesh is a non-communal country. I mean, we have people who are good, or who believe in the religion very strongly, whether it is Islam, Hinduism, Christianity, Buddhism, but they are not necessarily fanatics. So for me, the values of 1971 resonates deeply, and I
Okay.
think the Bangladesh politics should center around the spirit of freedom, of the war of liberation, because so many
Okay.
lives were sacrificed for a very noble cause, and for us to uphold that, we really need to unite as a force. The Gaza situation
Hmm.
actually has hugely impacted on public mind. Uh, and the Prime Minister has been very prompt and very solid with her commitment to safety and security of the Palestinians, her support for the Palestinian cause, condemnation of the acts
Yes.
of Israel for over the years. And that has created a big anti-Americanism feeling in Bangladesh as well.
Hmm.
So I think it is, taking all these factors into consideration, the Awami League still remains the best bet for Bangladesh, for the region, and
Hmm.
looking beyond the region into the Indo-Pacific region, the large Indo-Pacific, because this
Hmm.
government has good ties with China, as Vedanta said, and a very
Right.
historical one with India. In the case
Yes.
of
Yes.
China, it is an evolution that started in the mid 70s. In the case of India, it is written in blood, going back to
Absolutely.
1971. So there's fundamental difference between the two. And a relationship that evolves can also change the other way. I think China will be happy to deal with any government that is in office.
Hmm.
Uh, India is a different case altogether. We saw
And there's
the
a lot of
I
emotional bonding also that goes back a
not
long
that,
way
not
there.
just that. I was in Assam more than a year ago, and we bunch of a group of freedom fighters were invited there officially,
Okay.
and we had some youth and some journalists also. So we had a long meeting. I was leading the delegation. We had a long meeting with the chief minister of Assam, uh, and he repeatedly mentioned that Assam people of Assam are immensely grateful to Sheikh Hasina for ensuring the safety and security of the lives of people in Northeast India. And he said, because
Yes.
of Sheikh Hasina's zero tolerance for insurgents and terrorist
Absolutely.
organizations and all those groups of people, the people of Assam can sleep peacefully at night. And he repeated that to me, and he said, "Please convey this message to your prime minister when you go back." I said, "I certainly will." and
Okay.
the government has also invited him. So that those factors cannot be ignored, because no, we are not an island. We live surrounded by
Mhm.
countries that have interest in what happens in Bangladesh. So I think in all these factors, Sheikh Hasina remains the best bet.
My final question to both of you is about the scenario of the BNP participating or boycotting the election, and what kind of impact do you think this will have on the election? Very quickly, Dr. Shirada, you could go first.
Uh, it's again going to be a one-sided election. I mean, I'm aware of Shamsher sitting here and couple of more than couple of political parties who've joined the fray. If BNP, which is a large part of the I mean, the country was largely divided 38%, 35%, whichever way it was. So if that particular group is left outside the electoral race,
So I feel that
then
despite the fact that for 15 years BNP has not been active, it still remains one of the largest
oh
political
yes,
parties to
I
represent the people
I
there.
have no
And
doubt about that. I have
and
no doubt
therefore their
about that.
participation is more than welcome and they should be participating. In the
Absolutely.
event of their boycott, what kind of a scenario do you see playing out?
I would see, I mean, it's of course the anti-incumbency factor works. The other political parties will probably, make far more leeways than one is expecting them to be. But I would think this would, create more problems. I'm not even convinced that elections. I mean, I know I'm saying it. I shouldn't be saying it, but on 7th January, it's going to be a free and fair, peaceful. Which is, in fact, the government of India's stance has been that they've said that we want peaceful and free and fair election. But I'm not terribly convinced that on 7th January, it's not all inclusive political party elections. It's going to be a peaceful and free and fair elections.
Shamshir, very quickly to you. What is your gut feel?
Well,
What's
I
the sense
think,
that you have about whether the BNP will participate or not? Do you
well,
think it will
that's a
participate?
question that only BNP can answer, whether they'll participate or not. But there's also a feeling. There's also a feeling, a huge feeling among the public, that BNP will make a mistake if they don't participate.
We had some amazing and pretty sharp insights from both of you, which has made the understanding of the whole political ecosystem in Bangladesh much more clearer. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And for our viewers, I hope you're going back with a more in depth understanding of the political ecosystem in Bangladesh in the upcoming elections and the kind of participation that we are going to see from the other political parties, whether or not BNP chooses to join the election or not. Do feel free to stay connected with me on my email tulika.bhatnagar@pressxpress.org or say hi to me on X or Facebook. Till we meet next time, it's Namaste from Tulika.